May I see it, please? His gaze slides away from hers, his face flushing as his hand brushes down the front of his crumpled shirt. I don't think that's such a good idea.
She knows exactly what he's thinking because she's thinking it too. They both know how this particular scenario ended last time.
Oh, boy.
But she's a doctor. She'd like to think that she's stronger than the impulses of her flesh. It's okay, Michael. It won't be anything I haven't seen before. It's the truth, but that doesn't explain why her heart rate is suddenly twice as fast as it should be. Without saying another word, he begins to loosen his tie, his eyes looking anywhere but at her. As she watches him, she's gripped by the sudden urge to put her hands on top of his and slowly slip the knot of his tie undone. She sits back in her chair, putting some much-needed space between them, realizing too late that she had underestimated the strength of those impulses.
Uh-oh.
Ruh-roh. He pulls his tie over his head, drops it onto the table without ceremony, then begins to unbutton his shirt, still not looking at her.
Ooh.
The contrast between now and then hits her like a slap in the face. There's no smiling seduction here, only a growing tension stretching out between them, heightening her awareness of the smallest things. The sun-touched tone of his skin, the shadows beneath his eyes, the whiskers roughening his jaw. And she knows she's no more immune to him now than she ever was.
Damn.
She gets to her feet, moving to stand behind him as he slides his shirt off his shoulders and is glad he can't see her face. He smells of clean sweat and lemon soap. She suddenly wonders if his trip to the bathroom was more about washing up than anything else. And beneath that, she recognizes the familiar scent of his skin. Her gloved hands clenched at her sides, a flash of heat ripples through her stomach. Damn it.
She closes her eyes for a few seconds, pulling herself back into line, drawing on every scrap of her willpower. Then she opens her eyes, reaches for the first aid kit once more. A few seconds later, she's shaking her head, only just managing to resist the urge to click her tongue in disapproval at the sight of the bedraggled bandage on his shoulder blade. Does it hurt? She asks with a calm that belies the hollow ache tightening in her chest. It shouldn't surprise her, of course, because she's never been able to see him as just a patient. Yes, he says dully, looking down at his feet, and she knows the fact that he's not fobbing her off by saying he's fine is a very bad sign. Holding her breath, she peels away the bandage from his skin as carefully as she can, suddenly afraid of what she's going to find. To her relief, despite the total lack of adequate care, it's not as bad as she feared. The wound has begun to heal. There's no ulceration whatsoever, which has been one of her main concerns. She picks up a clean swab, frowning as a vague, lurking suspicion begins to take shape in her mind. No complications with his wounds, either his toes or his burn. No sharps or insulin in the first aid kit. She thinks back to the initial readings of his blood sugar levels and his reaction. He seemed relieved, she told Katie, when she'd announced the positive result of his later blood test. He hisses softly beneath his breath as she begins to clean the wound, and she can no longer hold her tongue. How are you managing with your insulin shots? He stiffens under her touch. She hears him exhale. Then he turns his head to look at her. You want the short or the long answer? The truth would be a good place to start. She thinks she already knows what he's going to tell her, but she wants to hear it from him. He shifts in the chair, but he meets her gaze steadily as he says in a quiet, clear voice, I'm not a diabetic. She may have half suspected the truth, but hearing him actually say it still shocks her. She stares at him, horrified by the implication of his admission. Your body is reacting to insulin as though you're not a diabetic. God damn it. God damn you, Michael, she says through suddenly clenched teeth. I could have killed you. She's suddenly furious, and she's not sure who deserves it more, him for his deception or her for ignoring her instincts.
He shakes his head. That wouldn't have happened. How the hell could you know that? He gives her a sad smile. Research, remember? Speechless, she just glares at him, and he quickly begins to talk again, filling the silence between them. I needed daily access to the infirmary, he says, his tone low and urgent, his eyes silently pleading with her to listen, to understand. The drainage pipe beneath the grate in your office. Excuse me, I have a frog in my throat today. The drainage pipe beneath the grate in your office led directly to a storage room, and that room was able to be reached via a tunnel from the guard's room. She stared at him, stunned. She's heard all kinds of rumors about the scale of the escape plan, but to hear him talk about it in such a matter-of-fact manner is something altogether different. Goodness. I'm sure the last thing you want is a chemistry lesson, but I was treating the pipes beneath the drain in your office with a corrosive every day so that it would eventually be weak enough to be smashed through. His gaze flicks away, then back again. The infirmary window was always our way out, he said, his eyes once again burning to hers. But the only thing I planned to need from you was a daily shot. She goes back to tending his burn, finding a small measure of distraction in the familiar movements of her hands. Finally, when the silence in the room is unbearable, she licks her dry lips and asks a question that's been at the top 10 list of things keeping her awake at night. So all the smooth talk, all those cozy little chats. The words feel thick and tight in her throat. All those things you said to me? He looks down at his feet again. That was just me, he murmurs, so quietly she can hardly hear him. That was just you and me.